And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the Bloom, episode 48. Gonna do some mid-round targets. This is the original inception of how Ryan and I first started doing podcasts. So we're gonna bring it to you guys on the Bubba and the Bloom feed this year, make it a little tradition over here, and go through the mid-rounds, given targets that we like to hope build the team and win some leagues for you. Before we get to all that, you can check me out on Twitter at BDintric, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod, and my co-host is always on Twitter at RyanBHQ, Ryan Bloomfield. How we doing, my friend?
Yeah, man, you stole my intro there. This is how I think this is pretty much how it started. I mean, I had been a guest on Bench with Bubba like a long time ago, but we really started doing these mid-round targets 2-3 years ago, and then last year it like totally took off. So this is kind of the how it began. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm always a big proponent of the middle rounds. We did our whole kind of ADP segment for at least a month and a half, focusing on 100 through like 400. So this, I think, is almost kind of like the capstone of that. We'll just go round by round, 12 teamers, and list a bunch of names. I feel like, I don't know about you. Season needs to start, man. Yeah. We've been going every week since, well, we really never stopped since last year. And there's only so much we can keep talking about. So I'm ready for the season to start in 2 weeks.
I'm ready. Like, one of the things we talked about before the show was our final drafts we're prepping for, that we got it kind of scheduled out, which tells you we're getting close to the big dance, which is great. And if anybody was on Twitter on Thursday, I think everybody needs baseball to start. Just going to throw it out there. I think we're all getting a little rambunctious on the Twitter.
Another reason why, yes.
I think we need some baseball, apparently real baseball, meaningful baseball is what we need in our lives right now. So definitely sooner than later, and it will be here quick. I love the WBC, but we don't need to go into that debate. I think it's been fun to watch. It's been great atmospheres. Like, I woke up this morning and Italy and Japan was on. Like, that doesn't happen during the real time, and the place is electric.
And they are all about it. Yep, they are all about it. Shohei Ohtani is. We'll go there for a little. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, this obviously means a ton to him. Yeah. Shohei Ohtani is 6 months away from a $500 million contract, and he's out there throwing triple digits, playing both ways for Japan because he wants to.
Yoshida.
It's been awesome.
Yoshida just came to the U.S. He's crushing it there. Like, he could literally be like, "Hey, I just got paid. I need to stay healthy for the Red Sox." No, he's out there crushing it. Lars Nootbaar is on Team Japan for those keeping track at home. It's been fun, like literally this morning, because it was so loud in that stadium. Turn the TV on. First off, Ohtani was at the plate right out the game. Like, this is like, can every morning start like this? This is awesome.
Yep.
And then my daughter comes into my room and was hanging out, and usually she wants to watch cartoons or something, but the noises that the crowds were making, like, just had her so enthralled, and so she started just like yelling colors on the screen, like green for grass, like blue for, like, she was in heaven watching this thing. I'm like, thank you, God, this is awesome. So we watched baseball this morning together, so it's I love everything about it. And then you go down to Miami, where like Puerto Rico and Dominican and Venezuela and those atmospheres, my goodness, you listen to those players, like you said with Shohei, those guys, I can't remember who got interviewed. They said, would you rather have a World Series or win the WBC with your country? And it was like almost 50-50. Like, WBC was taking over. It's like a gold medal. Like, they want to win for their country. I think it's the U.S. We're just kind of so jaded, I think, in this kind of situation. You go outside the bubble and these people like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll let you have the floor again. The Great Britain story. Amazing. So fun to watch. Like, they literally, when the U.S. won on Wednesday night, it got Great Britain to finish third in the pool or whatever, fourth, and it qualified them for 2026, which they haven't had. So now they get funding, they get money, they can be like, it's just, there's more to it than just, oh, they're playing recreation, like exhibition baseball. It's pretty darn awesome.
Yep. It means a lot to a lot of people. The players would not do this if it didn't mean the world to them. And yeah, I do think we in this country, I don't know if it means as much to folks here that are like big fans of MLB teams, where, you know, I do get like, if you're a Mets fan today, you are pretty bummed. Caveat, I don't think it's a major loss. If you lose your closer, I think the Mets are still very much in contention in the NL East. This is not a death knell to the Mets. But I think you nailed it. Like, this just mean worldwide so much to fans, to players, and ultimately it grows the game.
Bingo.
internationally, and that's what we want. And yeah, like you just said, Bubba, you watch these games, like it was just such a even though like Fox, I still can't believe Fox Sports won last night.
Dude,
they switched off the game.
I was recording with
Puerto
Kerwin,
Rico Dominican
and I'm
game.
watching the 9th inning. I look up at the USA games, and I'm like, wait, the game wasn't over. What just happened?
You watch that game, and like, yes, the injury, which we'll talk about, the fantasy fallout, that sort of thing. The injury was just such a black cloud over that game. That game was electric.
Oh my goodness.
The entire time.
Yeah.
So it's been a joy to watch. Some of the kind of WBC narrative today has been a little bit painful to go through or to ignore, I guess. But I don't think this changes I think the I keep wanting to say NFBC. I think the WBC, the way that this tournament has, especially since they lost the COVID year, the way that this tournament has been regarded internationally has just been fantastic, and it's been a freaking joy to watch. The issue, and we said this last week, there's just never a great time for it, I don't think. And that's the only kind of thing with it, but it's not an excuse not to have it and grow it. It's great for the game.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things you said there that I know people like think it's cheesy or whatever, but that's your opinion. It's growing the game. We talk about it over and over. We got to grow the game, and we got to grow it in the U.S. because it's a dying game. We're like falling behind multiple sports when it comes to baseball. When I grew up, baseball was probably one of the top sports, and it's definitely not even close to that now. And it might not be growing as much as you'd like here, but it's definitely growing elsewhere. Like, can't remember who tweeted it out today, and they said, if it wasn't for Edwin and Javi and Soto and all those guys playing on those teams, you have so many new little fields in like Venezuela and Puerto Rico where kids are playing baseball today, trying to be those guys just because they saw them on TV. Like that's the whole purpose of this. It'd be nice if we saw more of that in the US. Maybe we will. Maybe it will bring some more players on. Who knows? But because they saw that at least their big league team had guys out there. Who knows? But it is definitely a great way to grow the game. So I think it's awesome. It'd be great if we could figure out a better way to do it, but we just can't. Like you said, it's like when's it going to work? It's just not. So it is what it is. And honestly, I'd rather watch this right now than watch some spring training game where the starters get pulled in the 3rd inning. Like, give me this all day long. So
Agreed.
I love it.
Agreed. One of the biggest baseball moments in the last 5-10 years was that Adam Jones catch in the WBC in the last one, like, and just the reaction of everybody
in the pool of guys dressed up like the founding fathers.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
Oh man, like I tell you what, in 2026, when this thing happens, I might have to fly to Miami and we'll do a live show or something. Because
God,
I want to be in that. Like Sarah Sanchez went there and she was tweeting about it, and she's been to the Cubs World Series, which for a team that's been out of it for 100 years, how crazy that was. She said she's never been anything like it. It was like the craziest, coolest thing she's ever been to. So,
I had a few buddies because I used to live down in Arizona. A few buddies go to the Mexico USA game in Phoenix, and same thing. Like,
yeah, I'd be
just
all about
electric.
Yeah, so yeah, we could talk about that kind of stuff forever because when it comes down to the hearts of it, we're baseball fans. Probably so we play fantasy baseball, so I love it. I love every moment about it. Like we complain about MLB Network, like I'm watching replays of golf right now. Lately I've had WBC on this last week, which has been awesome. Like I miss having games on while I record shows. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Let's get to the news. The fallout of why we were talking about the WBC for so long to start things out is Edwin Diaz. And he didn't really see it live because no one did. Because Fox Sports 1, God knows why.
FS2, I think.
FS2, whatever it was, decided to go to the U.S. game in the 1st inning when it really didn't matter at all, instead of a 5-2 game in the 9th where the loser goes home in one of the biggest like electric settings you'll ever see, because these teams literally like they don't hate each other, but they're rivals. Like this is a big deal. And it's like Red Sox, Yankees. ESPN would never leave that game to go to Sports Center or something. It just wouldn't happen. Edwin Diaz struck out the side, I believe, in the 9th. I believe, because I didn't get to see it live. And then as they were all celebrating on the mound, jumping up and down, pop goes the knee. And he's having surgery. They're saying at least 8 months, pretty much for the season. I don't see anything where that changes. So outside of that, what's your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I mean, out for the year. You hate it for Diaz for baseball, like the trumpets thing, like that actually transcended into American culture. Like
Wait,
at
real
every
quick,
football game,
did you
it
see what
was
Christopher
there.
Morel did today?
Did not.
I saw it because of Sarah Sanchez. When he came up to bat the first time, he got introduced with the trumpet song for Diaz.
Morel did. That's cool.
That's pretty sweet. So, okay, as you were.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, nothing you can really say about it. Like, he already had surgery. It's kind of crazy. He had surgery on Thursday, less than 24 hours before the thing. Maybe there's an outside shot at an Undertaker-like return in September, the postseason or whatever. But fantasy-wise, like, I don't know. I mean, the popular wisdom would say David Robertson or Adam Ottavino, with maybe a tilt to David Robertson. I'm not going to predict that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets make a trade. Like Cohen, this is what Cohen does. I think he, maybe like a David Bednar, if someone like that became available, I could see that. So I don't know. I mean, David Robertson, yes, had like a 2.40 ERA, 1.16 WHIP last season. Pretty good surface numbers. Skills kind of went in the tank, especially the control in the second half. And he's 38 years old. Like, I don't know if that's a slam dunk. I wouldn't like elevate him above like a Scott Barlow type of tier. I think he goes in more I don't know, like where like Alex Lang is going, that type of thing. So if Robertson's even the guy, I don't think anyone knows. Like this news is so fresh.
Yeah, Robertson seems to be the favorite for most of us, but Ottavino has experience. Brooke Raley has been amazing out of the bullpen from recent years with teams he's been on. There's options. I'm also 100% with you. Like the Mets were linked to Liam Hendricks before obviously his cancer situation. Like they were trying to trade for another closer, even though they had Edwin Diaz already. So it wasn't like the feelers weren't already out there. They could definitely make a couple phone calls and make some things happen. Especially maybe it won't be right away. Maybe they're in it and getting close to the deadline. We see like a Josh Hader type trade. I'm not saying they're trade for Josh Hader, but something like that. Like maybe all of a sudden Devin Williams is available because the Brewers decided to just flip another thing. There's a multiple potential closers in Chicago with Boxberger and Fulmer. Like there's dudes out there. Bottom line. So they'll do something. See where it goes. I lean Robertson with you as well. I'm going to look at something real quick. Just today alone, the 16th of March, there's already been 3 OCs completed as of our time of recording. David Robertson's ADP is 176, as high as 167, as low as 191. Closers kind of around him. Jose Leclerc went at 171. That's kind of the range. Most of them are starters and everything else. So it's kind of that Leclerc range.
It's probably a little bit after Barlow.
Yeah, it's a massive drop off after that. Yeah, Leclerc. Trying to see where some other guys are.
Would you pay that price knowing the little we know right now on Robertson?
It'd be one of those if you got like totally hosed on closing situations, potentially, just because it's an OC where you want that overall, you need those saves. And on paper, he should be the dude, at least to start the year. But I wouldn't feel safe about it. I'll tell you that much. It's like some the Jewett and company, they call it a fluid situation. I won't say how they have it written down, but there could be a lot of moving parts for sure in that bullpen. So I wouldn't be running to it, but just the fact that he's going at a 176 ADP already in a 12-teamer, what's that, like round 15, 16, something like that. So you're going to have to be kind of aggressive. That's middle of your draft. That's a mid-round pick, aka something we might talk about later tonight. So keep an eye on that as well. Ian Anderson, option to AAA after having a pretty nice spring, actually. So that kind of surprised a lot of people. There's talks of Schuster. There's talks of Dodd. They might not even need a starter right away, the 5th starter. There's a lot of things in Atlanta. How are you assessing the situation? Like some people are saving them for DCs, not even worrying about them in redraft formats, but maybe in your 15-teamers, there's something there.
I think it's something you have to pay attention to just because Atlanta is almost like a starting pitcher factory with some of their young guys the last few years. So like I've heard a couple things or seen a couple things that this might even just be like schedule manipulation with Ian Anderson, where Atlanta doesn't really even need a 5th starter until later in the year. And you'll see a lot of that start to come out here in this next week or two as teams kind of set their rosters up for opening day. That said, if it is something like Dylan Dodd and Jared Schuster have been fantastic, I actually wrote them both up for the Speculator. I was just doing spring training takeaways. Those two guys combined, 22 strikeouts, 11 each, 1 walk over 16 innings. Some of the prospect folks aren't as high on them long term. So that I do take into account. Like, I don't know if these are like, it definitely does not sound like this is like this year's Spencer Strider. I don't want to pump the helium with Dodd or Schuster that much, but could they be an effective streamer? Of course. Could they be like a mid to late rotation piece that kind of eats innings and 15 teamers? I think so. So I don't really have a read on which one would be the fifth between Dodd or Schuster, or if it's Anderson. Again, I don't know if Atlanta even needs their fifth starter until like the second week of the year. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to check out. I'm pulling up their schedule right now, and it's like they play Thursday, then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, they'd actually, let's see, that's 1, 2, with day off, 3, 4, 1, 2. They're gonna need one. Well, then they have an off day again. Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll need one back into the first full week, looking at their schedule, and that lines up to either an at St. Louis or at home against San Diego situation. So why I'm mentioning that would be, I remember last year, someone we're going to talk about in a second, we kind of hit on late in draft podcasts like this, where like all of a sudden Tyler Miguel was starting to get some steam. It's like, hey, maybe you take him with one of your last picks. Like, here's an idea, and he falls into it. And it worked really well until he got hurt. Again, like you said, I don't even know which pitcher it's going to be out of these two. But you could see a scenario where that plays out. I would love a better matchup than St. Louis or San Diego, personally. Those are two like of the better teams in the National League. But it could be something along those lines. Maybe you don't draft them. They have a rough start in those first two. You get them cheap on the waiver wire after that. There's things to think about, but I just want to kind of point out who they might face in their first start, and it's not as warm and fuzzy as you might want it to be to begin with.
And I think next week we'll do an even deeper dive on schedules. So that's a good prelude. Prelude, it's even a word. I don't know. Interlude.
Been doing this for a while, Ryan. Just gonna throw it out there. Jose Quintana. Yeah, back to the New York Mets. Sorry, guys. Jose Quintana, he's going to be out for at least 3 months, maybe longer. They thought it was a cancer. Thank God it wasn't, but he still had to have a bone graft in his ribs. Surgery has taken place. That sounds painful as all get up, and it's going to take a while to heal. So he's going to be out for a bit, and it goes into something we love because there's where the Tyler Miguel thing comes into play. We've been pumping David Peterson all draft season as a guy. And more importantly, Ryan, I know you have it written down here, so I hate to steal your thunder, but we said it time and time again talking about teams. 6 starters will get plenty of run this season. We're seeing it in the middle of March already.
We are. I think with Quintana, it was actually like a rib injury, and then they just found this I don't want to say tumor, but like kind of lump that turned out to be benign. So thankfully, a reminder, listeners, ourselves, get checked when you can. Regularly, probably not when you can. Get checked regularly because you never know. Yep. David Peterson. I think David Peterson's the play. We've both been touting David Peterson for quite a while. I think David Peterson would get the nod over Tyler McGill if there were one spot. There may even be 2 spots in the Mets rotation available by the time that turn comes around. We've talked a lot about David Peterson on the show before. He's a big upside guy in the forecaster. Some control issues, but I think everything else is there. And even the control issues, I don't think are insurmountable. Like, it doesn't take away from the overall skill set. So for me, David Peterson should be shooting up boards, and I think he probably is. He's got a ADP the last 16 drafts of like 321 actually, so with a min of 280, so not
nearly
too bad.
Nearly free.
Too bad. Let's target David Peterson.
We'll do this just in today's 316 drafts. Thank you, Steve Austin. Peterson ADP of 294, so a little higher than that. So he's moved up a bit. Still not bad at all.
What's McGill? I would
That's what I'm
think
looking
lower,
at. 311.
later.
He's lower. He's about almost 20 picks later.
Pretty close though.
So yeah, and that's the whole thing. These are in-game picks. Throw some darts. Doesn't work out, you drop them. But we know for a fact both those guys could be game changers if it clicks. Like they're both very, very good. So not the worst late game darts to throw, especially in a 12-teamer. Like these are the guys you churn and burn all season long. And they're going to get run for like 3 months. So it's not even just a quick churn and burn. This is a big
it
one.
might not even be a churn and burn. Honestly,
yeah,
I think
they might stick around for a while. So this could be big. Diamondbacks. I thought this was kind of funny considering the last live draft feed we did and the Diamondbacks closer situation that we were having throughout the podcast. So Mark Melancon, we all kind of thought would be the main guy to start with, but we were all believers that Melancon's not good too. Like that was just a thing. Well, he's making this even more fun now because he's likely not going to start the season as he's already hurt. And there's so many options out there to go through. But you have him written down here, and I've seen a lot of people talking about him, and even Bogman talked about it that night when we were chatting with him. That Scott McGough, who I'd never heard of, we never did. We were literally in the live chat, like, who's this guy? Like, who? He's crushing it this spring, but still might not be the guy. So if you want to address the Arizona situation, if you want to, how are you approaching this with Melancon out of the way?
It's funny, man. Yeah, we had Ray Murphy on the Tout Wars stream, and Ray was with us for almost the whole draft.
Yeah.
He had to bail at the end, but I think his first pick after he left, I go, who the hell is Scott Magoo?
Yeah,
and that's what I knew about Scott McGough before this. Ray and I kind of quietly, after he got off the stream, had a battle of Arizona relievers. I, of course, took Mark Melancon. Ray took Scott McGough, and then I doubled down and I went Joe Mantiply in the last round. I don't know. So obviously Melancon being hurt, Melancon was horrendous this spring anyway, and we probably now know why, because he had the shoulder. McGough has been like fantastic in spring, and this is one where I do look at spring stats just because there is a role at stake, and I think Arizona might just pick the guy who's pitched best in the spring. And really roll is all that matters. Scott McGough, 7 Ks, 1 walk in 5 innings. I mean, he is a 33-year-old journeyman. I don't think he's pitched in the majors since 2015. So there is that. That's probably why I haven't heard of the guy before like 2 weeks ago. Still got Miguel Castro, still got the aforementioned Mantiply, the former closer to be in Kevin Ginkel. So I don't know. There were like 5 guys vying for the Arizona closer role. Now there's 4. I don't think this sheds any light on that with Melancon leaving. So I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd pick Ray's intelligence over mine and go Scott McGough in this bullpen. I think this bullpen is worth tracking. It's not like a Tigers committee where like, okay, at best you're going to get a few saves. I think Arizona could sneakily be pretty good. So I don't know. It's Melancon like wasn't going to be the guy anyway, just because of how bad he was this spring. And so I don't know. I feel like it's McGough or Castro, but that's a total guess.
Okay, while you were talking, I was looking through Baseball Reference, Fangraphs, Scott Magoo, and
we should just call him Scott Magoo.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with now. I'm a nicknames guy, so he's Magoo. Like literally, if he becomes a closer, they have a lot of good marketing options in Arizona, and they need to make money. I'm looking at this, and literally, the guy doesn't exist after 2018. Like, where did he go? His age 28 season.
What do you mean? Like, there's no stats for him
anymore? There's no stats. So then I went to Baseball Reference thinking maybe he was playing in like Asia somewhere because they usually have those stats. No stats. I have no idea where this man went. Like, I'm going to do a deep dive on this later because if he really just like took off and like he's working at a hardware store for 5 years and he comes back, like, is this the Kurt Warner story? Like, what the heck are we doing here? This is the movie The Rookie. This is the movie The Rookie.
He went to Tokyo. He pitched in the NPB in 2019. McGough, 3.15 ERA, 11 saves. And then the following year, a 3.91 ERA in 2020. Still not accounted for
the last 2 years.
He pitched in the 2020 Olympics.
See, where did this guy go? Where did he go?
International man of mystery, Scott McGuff.
It's the Austin Powers of baseball. This is awesome. So yeah. And then if it's a spring battle, there's so many guys you mentioned. Like I've been taking chances on all these dudes late in like Chafin, Ginkle. They're super late in DCs because someone's gonna get a run at some point in time. McGuff seems like the dude that should get the chance. We'll see. Like it's bizarre. Man of mystery. All aboard. San Francisco Giants. Brandon Crawford already hurt. No surprise there. And this is going to be a lingering problem all season long. I don't see this changing anytime soon. So, like, it could end he might end things quickly. Like, it might not even be worth grinding through. So this just opens the door for fun for Thairo Estrada to play
your boy
full time.
Yep.
I think the biggest winner here, and there's a lot of guys, there's tons of moving parts in San Francisco, as we know. What it does for me, though, is it locks Wilmer Flores into more of a secure role, where I thought he'd kind of be running around playing some third, playing some second when Estrada didn't, whatever. I think this locks him into either second or even third because David Villar is banged up. Like, this is a big thing for Wilmer Flores, I think. That's my first 2 cents on this.
Yeah, no, you're the Giants guy, so I was wondering what you think of that. I mean, do you think Estrada is like the shortstop when Brandon Crawford's not? I mean, he played 37 games there last year.
Pretty much when Crawford was hurt, Estrada played shortstop. So I think that's it. He's not good defensively at shortstop, but none of the Giants are good defensively. So whatever. But I think this opens the door for him to be pretty much the regular shortstop like Crawford's out.
And it's a good point on Crawford. Like it's a cortisone injection in his knee, and they're just waiting to see if it works. Like I have some Crawford in draft champions, like draft and hold as a guy to just accumulate at bats off the bench. But in a fab league, that's not the guy you want to target anyway. Like the ceiling is not what we saw a couple years ago. And then this on top of it, you're right. Like this sounds like they're just kind of hoping it will go away with the knee with Crawford. And
he battled it all last season. I don't see how this is going to get any better. So it's unfortunate. He wanted one more run to kind of finish his career as a Giant. Might not get that run. So we'll see how it goes. But it kind of opens up some doors for some more platooning guys to get a little more regular at bats. Let's put it that way. Maybe JD Davis starts to play more. Who knows? He's been playing all spring at first base. So it'll be weird to see him transition back to third, but you never know.
Cast legend.
Yeah,
I'd love it.
Giants like to do a bunch of things like that. So we shall see. All righty. Let's do some mid-round targets, Mr. Bloomfield, using OC ADP from March 12th to March 15th, rounds 8 through 16. We're going to go back and forth. Ryan got first picks on the odd numbers, I believe. Let me check. Odd numbers. I can tell one pick for sure. It's all caps. Odd numbers first. I got even numbers. So Bloomfield, who's your round 8 pick?
Yeah, I didn't stupidly snake our draft like I did last week. Hot tip, when you snake a draft with 2 people, and that doesn't make for the best podcasting because everyone just gets 2 picks in a row. So, we adjust here on the show and we continuously improve. So, I'm going with the guy who I think is like a second, third round talent going in the 8th round of 12 teamers. It's all about the health. He's healthy right now. I just saw him play last night in the World Baseball Classic. He looked pretty good. That's Tim Anderson. And really that's all it comes down to is the health, is the number of games played. Tim Anderson, yes, has had groin hamstring injuries each of the last 3 seasons. Did have a finger injury, which was a bit more fluky last year. Tim Anderson, even as recently as 2021, had 530 at bats. And every year from 2019 through 2021, he's been an upper $20 player. This is just his age 30 season. Seems like he's older than that to me, but he's not. And so I think you've got a guy who's being discounted for injuries from last year, somebody who's healthy, and I think still has the skills to be like a third rounder in 15-team leagues, which is where he was being drafted this time last year.
Yeah, he's a guy that I was like all out on the beginning of draft season, telling myself, he can't stay healthy, blah, blah, blah. As we go through draft season, you see how different player pools shake out. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, we did those podcasts for like 1 through 150. Those have helped me out tremendously in my drafts. Like just having that mindset has been tremendous. And it kind of opens the eyes of the shortstop position some more. Like I'll talk about my guy, but Tim Anderson, I think you need to kind of take that bias off and go, okay, now you're getting the discount because of the injury, and that's what you're getting. So if he can somehow stay healthy, or even if he plays his normal injury season, you're probably still getting a darn good player at this point in the draft. If he plays more, you're getting a bonus. So that's tough. And like you said, we've seen him play now in the World Baseball Classic. He played second base too, which was good to see. Guys that aren't healthy, you don't play different positions. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I like that a lot. My
you
guy,
take your guy over Tim Anderson. I would think so.
Oh yeah, I would still. Yeah, that's how this is gonna be. It's gonna be a lot of our guys basically. So to come down to, if you've listened to our shows enough, mine is very simple. It's Willy Adames. The power, 30+ home run bat. His batting average will be better this year because he got BABIP'd hard last year. He ran more last year. He'll probably run even more with the new rules this year. Middle of the lineup in Milwaukee, and I'm a big fan of that Milwaukee lineup, especially the top 5 or 6 dudes. Like I think there'll be a lot of offense there. So I'll keep it pretty simple. He's still super, super young. Look at Willy Adames. He's going to be 27 this year. I think a dude, if he could hit 250, like, the Bad X has him 248, 28, 80, and 83 with 9 steals. I wouldn't be shocked if he get 250 to 260 with 30+ homers, maybe 90 RBIs and like 10 or 12 steals. Like that's a heck of a season. Like that'd be an awesome season. So I could see something like that from Willy Adames. So I'm going to go with him as my round 8 selection. And I've done that many drafts so far this season.
I don't think I realized, how much, not how much he ran. He's not like an elite stolen base guy, but I kind of think of him as like a less than 5 stolen base, but definitely not the case. And the power last year was pretty damn legit. So I don't know. I don't have Willy Adames on any teams. I know he's your boy, probably because I'm taking Tim Anderson instead. But
I'm biased because one thing I've probably mentioned it on our show before. In past years, I've written about him. If you just look at his developments as he's gotten older in the power departments, the contact rates and everything, they've improved every year as he's gotten older. It's like the development patterns you want to see in a ball player. And so I believe the path, basically. It wasn't like a fluke thing to me. So I'm a Adames believer.
One last thing on this, and then we'll move on. But this is start of like a mini cliff at shortstop, where the 2 guys we just talked about, Anderson, but Adames going 90. No other shortstop goes till Jeremy Pena at 111. Then there's Carlos Correa, Ahmed Rosario, Nico Herner at like 130, 140, and then it is done for quite a while. So this is the part of your draft where I think if you want to go shortstop, if you don't have someone you like late, I think you need to be looking at one of these 2 guys that we just talked about, Adames, Anderson, or maybe Xander Bogaerts, who's going in between them.
Yep, for sure. Who's your round 9?
Tyler O'Neill. I think Tyler O'Neill, and so it's very similar kind of theme as Tim Anderson. Last year was being drafted as a 3rd rounder. It was all injuries for O'Neill. Got off to a pretty bad start, got hurt, came back, and actually looked really good. Power, speed, 10 homers, 8 stolen bases in just 168 second half at bats once Tyler O'Neill was seemingly healthy. So I just think along the same reasons as Tim Anderson, this is the way I draft. I like kind of taking last year's duds, especially if it was like an injury to a younger guy and they're now healthy. So I could almost copy paste what I said with Tim Anderson to Tyler O'Neill, but Tyler O'Neill from a power speed standpoint, I think an outfield is one of the best power speed ceilings you will find this late in the draft.
100%. Nothing really to add to that. I'm buying in on that as well. For me, a player that's grown on me throughout draft season, the more I've done, digging in on stuff, is MJ Melendez. He's not my favorite catcher. Coming to my next round catcher will be my favorite catcher, but I am starting to grab more MJ Melendez, basically, for a couple reasons. He's leading off, which is big. His OBP skills are really good, so now you got a catcher that can score a ton of runs. He can still get you 20 to 25 home runs, maybe more if he really gets at it. A couple years ago, he had like 40+ in the minor leagues. He combined in the minors and the bigs last year, he had 20. So that's possible to even steal you maybe 3, 4, 5 bases, which is nice, the catcher's position. And the batting average last year to me was kind of fluky with Melendez hitting 217. He struggled in AAA even last year, so I don't know if it was just an approach thing or what it was, because prior to that, he hit for decent averages throughout the minors. You get him back to 240, 250 with that power and the plate discipline. He's had over a 10% walk rate in every step of the minors except single A in 2018 at 9.1% walk rate. So he's got really good plate skills. Only struck out 24.5% of the time last year, which I kind of count as a bonus. In his early minor leagues days, he's a 30+% K guy. That's gotten much better. as he's developed. 24 years old, a top of the order. I think there's just a lot of like there, and he's gonna play the outfield, so you got a catcher that's gonna get a ton of at bats, and that's the biggest thing that's got my attention. It's not a guy that's gonna get you like 120 games. He legit should play 140 to 150 ball games, maybe more. He's gonna play the outfield and then catch when Salvi needs days off. Like he's gonna get a lot of at bats. So I like MJ Melendez for that reason. If like we talk about accumulating at bats all the time, and this is a catcher outside of like the elite guys early, that's gonna get a ton. So he stands out for me quite a bit.
23 games at DH, 38 outfield. Yeah, MJ Melendez played 130 games last year in partial season. So I get it. And those 130 games is mostly at leadoff. So I hear you. I'm ending up with Wilson Contreras more often than not.
The wrong Contreras.
Melendez.
Contreras.
The better. Yeah. Still the better Contreras, Wilson.
Yeah,
but yeah, the forecaster agrees with you, by the way, Melendez. We say the pieces are here for a perennial top 5 catcher.
I'm there.
All right. Stephen Kwan is my pick. And I have, so listener of the show, Alan De Leonardis, has turned me around quite a bit on Stephen Kwan, who I just have this mental thing of like David Fletcher, Luis Arias, and he's not. Stephen Kwan has a little bit of pop, and I think a burgeoning running game. Second half last year, or Stephen Kwan was, and I try not to cite first second half too much for hitters. For pitchers, I'll do it all the time. But stolen bases is one thing that I do look at as being a little bit stickier from first to second half. Stephen Kwan was one of the biggest gainers in stolen bases and stolen base attempts last year. 5 in the first half, 14 in the second half for Stephen Kwan last year, and hit 318 with 5 homers in the second half. Like, he's not a 0 in power. Granted, I don't think he'll get you 10, but could this guy hit 300 with 30 steals with a ton of runs atop the Cleveland lineup? Like, I think that has a ton of value, especially the batting average, where that starts to get scarce in these middle rounds. So Stephen Kwan's my guy here.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on Kwan. I made a case for him this past week with Toby. So that 100 runs, I think, is a real thing. And that's pretty tremendous at this point in the draft. So 100% with you on that one. For me, it's the other Contreras, William Contreras. And he's been a target for me all season long. It's weird doing back-to-back catchers, honestly. But if you wait on catchers and get these two guys as your 1 and 2, I'd be pretty pumped on that, honestly. Melendez and Contreras. That'd be a fun 1-2 punch. This is a guy, like another 20-plus home run bat. He had 20 home runs last year in 97 games. He should play between DH and catcher. I think they're going to want to play him 130 to 140 if they can. He hit 278 last year in the bigs, 292 in AAA. He's always hit for a pretty good average. The hard contact skills are bonkers for this guy. 13.4% barrel, 48.6% hard hit, 115 mile per hour max EV. He's just a beast at the plate, and apparently he's not that bad behind the plate, which is great to see. So they traded for him for a reason. They're going to want to utilize him a ton in the middle of that Milwaukee order. Again, Milwaukee team, I'll say it over and over, I like a ton. So for me, William Contreras, I'm just a big boy season could be coming from him.
So they're going 7 picks apart, MJ Melendez and William Contreras. Who are you taking straight up? You're going to be on the clock at OCs. You got 3 OCs coming up, Bubba.
I'm honestly getting closer to MJ Melendez, to be honest.
You're looking like me on a live stream trying to pick. Yeah.
I'm getting closer to MJ Melendez as draft season's gone on. I'll be 100% honest there. The idea of leading off and playing all those extra games in the outfield, those at bats are a big deal to me.
Do you know if Melendez, since you just did your marathon with Curland, is he leading off in the spring for Kansas City?
Yes, he is. I could also check for you real quick.
Not to put you on the spot, but I was just curious. Like, I don't think that has changed. Like, I don't think that outlook has changed too much.
No, it hasn't changed much, and he should be the dude. If it continues on this way, I don't see why it wouldn't. The hardest thing, and then we talked about this with Curlin a lot, is so many players are gone playing in the WBC. Like, you got Salvi's out there,
Full circle.
Out. There's a bunch for Kansas City, which makes it tricky. But as I pull up Kansas City, MJ Melendez is playing somewhere else too because he's not even on the lineups.
Oh, that's right. He is. I asked you a loaded question. He's playing right field for Mexico.
Yeah,
I believe
he'll be
or
returning.
it might be Colombia. Sorry.
Yeah, it should be.
He was
Colombia.
playing right field the other night.
It's Colombia. I'm pretty sure.
So
yeah, so he'll be returning to the Royals shortly. It's Colombia got eliminated. So
at least you didn't make something up and say, "Oh yeah, he's been leading off for Kansas City."
He was before he left. He was before he left. I know that for a fact. But then I was looking at this past week, and I'm like, he's not even in the lineup.
My bad, man. I should have. I totally saw him make a catch in right field the other night. And
so again, playing the field, not catching, getting those at bats.
I will no longer ask you impromptu questions.
No, bring it. That's the fun. People enjoy this. It's good.
Oh God,
who's your round 11 pick?
That's hilarious. So I'm gonna go pitcher, and actually, Ben Tidd brought this up. He asked this question after our show last week. So when we were talking about early round passes, I should say, we didn't really say many pitchers. And Ben was asking, like, is that by design? You trying to, like, I don't know, break things up and evenly by position, that sort of a thing. And it was a good point. Like, I didn't really have too many early round. I think Dylan Cease was my early round pass. At the price. I know your barf draft you talked about with Toby. But where was I? Yeah. So I am going to talk more about, and we're laughing because something came in. I'm going to be talking more targets in the later rounds with pitchers, and I'm not fading many pitchers early in the draft, and that is by design. Like that's been my draft plan all year, is taking the pitchers early, fading these middle rounds, which is exactly where we're talking about. So I thought that was a really good, astute observation by Ben Tidd. I don't know, Bubba, if you had anything to add to that before.
No, it's pretty much. I think it also goes back to like our mid round or our pockets of ADP we talked about, and how we already have like certain areas of the draft we like pitching and certain areas we don't. So early rounds wasn't one where we were really fading many. We try to get a couple of guys in the early rounds, and then we kind of fade guys or just don't look at guys in the middle, basically, is what it comes down to. So it's that's what it kind of comes down to. We weren't doing it on purpose, but that's Ben for you. He's a genius, and it's a great point he made. I'll tell you that much.
So I'm going to go. So the roundabout way of going. I'm going to the mound. First one. It's going to be Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn is someone, I think he's on like a complete island in these middle rounds where I really do not like a lot of this. This is where I'm going bats, and that's by design. But I do have Lance Lynn on a lot of teams. I think. I mean, I know Lance Lynn was one of the best pitchers, really, in baseball from like a skill standpoint. You look at the raw skills of what Lance Lynn did from like a swinging strike standpoint, from just a throwing strikes and not walking anybody. Once Lance Lynn was healthy last year. And he finished the season healthy, 100 innings in the second half. So Lance Lynn, I think, is like a 5th round starting pitcher going in the 9th, and 12 teamers going in the 11th. So I think if you wait on starting pitchers, you want a middle round guy. Lance Lynn is a smash for me.
Yeah, no, I like the bounce back for Lynn. You mentioned the second half from him. Tremendous stuff from the big man. For me, and it was funny actually making these picks here. There's a couple rounds here where I don't like anybody, so I'd be like jumping things. I'd be like that. I've noticed that just kind of playing with this. I do love Rhys Hoskins though. I haven't been, because there's a first baseman I like later. So does Ryan, that I kind of jump instead of Rhys these days. But if I had to pick one from this round, it's Rhys Hoskins. I've talked about it many times. This is a 30 home run dude. When healthy, you're going to get 30 plus home runs. I'm very confident of that. And more importantly, I just love the consistency in batting average you can pencil in. It's like 245, 246, 247. You had one bad year at 226 and back to 246. So what he does, he's got the ability to get you 80 plus runs and RBIs. On a good year, get you even more. We'll see how it goes this year. He'll get you a bag or two, nothing crazy. Awesome in OBP leagues, but we don't really care about that on this topic. But I just love being able to pencil in his stat line. It's just as consistent as it comes when he stays healthy. And people say, oh, he doesn't stay healthy. And I'm like, the last 4 full seasons of baseball, not counting 2020, he played 153 or more games in 3 of the 4 seasons. Like, what more do you want from this man? Like, there's like a narrative behind him that he doesn't stay healthy. No, he does. Like, I don't know. I don't understand what you're seeing here. So I just love the consistency, especially as you get deeper in the draft. Consistency is hard to find. And so I love that with Rhys Hoskins. And I think he's one of those guys we talk about where a ceiling could play. He feels like one of those dudes. He's always got like a shoulder thing or a hand thing or something. So he plays injured. He doesn't like miss time. It's one of those things like if he could ever just stay healthy for 1 year, I think 40 home runs is in the bag. Like there's an option there. So I think having that upside ceiling is pretty nice with Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, Rhys Hoskins, to your point about perception and reality, only one season in his we'll call it 5-year career. Only one season he spent more than 16 days on the IL. So 10 days in 2018, 16 days in 2020, 38 days in 2021. 0 IL days for Reese's Pieces last season. So
beautiful.
Funny how, especially with injuries, that can stick with a player when sometimes it's not deserved. I always talk about the Nelson Cruz example. Nelson Cruz was like a horse later in his career. Early on, he couldn't get through a season, so that stuff changes.
Those are horse steroids.
They may have been. Nelson Cruz, again, bring this back to the WBC. Nelson Cruz is like the GM for the Dominican, and he put himself in the other night. He
put himself in, pinch hit single, and then he went and played right field.
I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely loved it.
Yep.
All right. So my round 12 guy, and this is fascinating. I was just looking this up. Seiya Suzuki, so we're taking these last 10 OCs in March 12th through March 15th. But Seiya Suzuki, so with that filter, Seiya Suzuki is like a 140 ADP. In the last 2 days of 12-team drafts, Seiya Suzuki is at 176. So he's going like and trending later in drafts. I personally think we're overreacting here.
Yeah.
I think so. And Ron Chandler does this research every year for the forecaster. On average, 40% of your players are going to hit the IL. The top 300 are going to hit the IL at some point this season. It's going to happen. Seiya Suzuki, yes, is currently hurt with an oblique. He is the rehab sounds pretty good. He's taking dry swings. It sounds like Suzuki's going to miss maybe 2 weeks. The nice thing about that, I think 2 weeks is not very long in terms of having to hold him for that extra roster spot in a non-IL slot, in a non-IL league. And he's injured, so you can plan in your draft to take a 2-week rental for Seiya Suzuki. I think Seiya Suzuki is a top 100 player going, again, these last couple days, 170, because he's going to miss 2 weeks. Yes, there's some risk that the oblique injury lingers longer than the 2 weeks. That's probably why he's going that late. But I think this is one where, and it's not my normal style to draft somebody who's hurt, but in these middle rounds, you kind of need to take a little bit of more risk on some of these picks. I think Seiya Suzuki just totally lines up for me right now.
Yeah, no, I could see the risk there because the upside's tremendous. Obliques scare the crap out of me, though. I'll be honest. That's a terrifying.
Teoscar Hernandez last year. Like, you could point to that example and be like, yeah. So I do get it.
There's a lot of them, but hopefully because it was spring, they were more precautionary and pulled them early type thing. So you got to look at that angle too. So there's a lot of what ifs. And hey, he's not playing in the WBC, so got that going for you.
Physically cannot.
My guy in round 12 is Mr. Max Muncy. We've talked about him a ton. Third base cliff that falls off. He's got second base potentially. Like there's flexibility with him when it comes to positions. This is a guy that really turned it on in the second half last year. I still am concerned. We talk about it a lot. He still never had the surgery. So it's like, does it ever like come and hamper him at some point? You never know. He looked like he learned how to play with it. Let's put it that way. Play with the injury. And he looked great. His OBP skills were still really good. His contact quality was still very, very good. It was kind of almost like a bad luck situation with Max Muncy. Maybe the shift, lack of shift could help him a ton as well. There's a lot of things that I think could go in the right direction. And at worst, you got a dude that, because even before he was hurt, his batting average was declining. I actually wrote about him for an article earlier today. He might just be like a 220 guy now. He might not be the big dude that you want anymore, but he's still a 30 to 35 home run bat that could score and drive in a ton of runs in that Dodgers, at least the front half of that Dodgers lineup. So the combination of that power with that positional flexibility more than anything has me kind of circling Max Muncy at this point in the draft.
Agreed. All right. This one's the all caps.
I'm going to walk out of the room for a second if you don't mind.
This one's the all caps. I claimed odd on our sheet. I claimed odd rounds just so I could take the Rowdy Tellez. I don't know why Tellez is going this late. He's going to play every single day. The power is, I think, absurd. I think the power is Rowdy Tellez hit 35 home runs last season. I think that's obviously in play again, if not 40. I think Rowdy Tellez from a strikeout rate standpoint is totally fine. He hit 219 last season because of like a 220 BABIP. At HQ, we had an expected batting average for Tellez nearly 40 points higher, which is really rare, around 260. So I think you're getting a guy who can hit 250 with 35 to 40 home runs. Tell me how much of, and not can, like I think like will, like that's almost like my projection for him. I don't see much of a difference between Rowdy Tellez and like Matt Olson going far earlier. So Rowdy Tellez, I think of any player in any middle round, Rowdy Tellez is my pick. One final thing you mentioned, Bubba, Rhys Hoskins. There is a little cluster here, first baseman, that is awfully attractive. If you decide to wait on first base, you can get Rhys Hoskins, Christian Walker, CJ Cron, who I like, obviously Tellez, still holding on with Anthony Rizzo. There's a lot of pretty good first basemen going around here. Rowdy's the king of them all, though.
And I will say it is a great group, and we talked about that. But something to monitor. Eno Saris mentioned it. I hadn't heard it before, but it kind of makes sense because Mike Moustakas is playing a bunch of first base in spring. CJ Cron's and so is Toglia. CJ Cron's dealing with a knee injury already, like a little lingering thing. Who knows how the severity of that? Something to monitor. Rizzo's already doing the back injury thing, which we know will happen all year long. He'll sit out games here and there. So just little differing pieces in this range. But to the Rowdy Tellez point, I'm just going to say it. There aren't many guys that I believe that can hit 50 home runs in baseball. I believe 50. Rowdy Tellez could hit 50 home runs in baseball. That's like the ceiling. That's like I made a joke when I have done things that I predict he's going to be the home run champ in the National League this year. Like this is my dude, and I wouldn't be shocked if he ran into 50. So I looked at, I can't remember what I took him at in Barf. I jumped him pretty high there. I just looked at today's OCs, ADP of 146, as high as 138 though. So it's one of those, if you want to take him, you're going to have to reach into round 11 or 12 potentially. Like he's going to keep moving up, I think. So that's something to keep in mind.
It's funny, man. Guess who's hitting second, third, and fourth in Milwaukee's lineup this year?
Oh yeah, I know.
You are a Brewers fan.
No, trust me, because I wrote a little behind the scenes here. I'm doing kind of a similar article to what we're doing today, and I kind of must have guys without like the early round targets. Or no, I did a OBP article that had Christian Yelich in it. Then a must-have article which has William Contreras, Willy Adames, Rowdy Tellez in it. Like I'm literally doing the top four in the lineup right there. I've written in my last two articles. Like the
season needs to start.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Awesome. So for me in round 13, since the best pick in the entire draft was already taken, I'm going Lucas Giolito. We've talked about him before. This is kind of similar to your Tim Andersons, your Tyler O'Neills to me. This is a former guy that was like some people were taking him on the 1-2 turn last year, if not later in like somewhere around 2, and he earned it. He's been like a near Cy Young ace type pitcher. Obviously, things fell apart last year. The velocity changed. He kind of messed with his mechanics. He was tipping pitches at one point. There was a lot of things. He came in like overweight and just too much muscle. He even flat out said it. He put it on because he wore down as the season came on. That affected his pitching. He's slimmed down already this year. He's worked on mechanics. He's back more to the Giolito of old. I'm a believer in that. I think there's a lot to it. I've talked about it on many shows. He's a very mental guy. He's knows what's going on, knows how to fix things, works on fixing things. I'm a believer that he might not reach back to that ace level, but this is a dude that, we're getting him at pick. Where was he at?
144, 150.
144, whatever. He should be like at least a top 70 pick. He should be in that Luis Castillo range. Like I'd be something like that. So you're getting to me a discounted pitcher here. So I've really tried to focus on a guy like Lucas Giolito.
Okay. That's aggressive, but I like it. I'm thinking, so this will lead right into my, I cheated. I took 2 guys with this.
I left them for. I even texted you. I said I left them for you because I'm a real friend, and I wouldn't take them from you because I could have.
But I think I would take both of these guys over
Well, you
Giolito.
would.
I know you
Because
wouldn't.
these are your guys. Like it makes sense. Like you have to.
So so we talk about rule changes and stuff all the time in baseball and stolen bases. I think there should be a rule change in fantasy for 2023. If you draft Jeffrey Springs, he has to come attached with Drew Rasmussen.
Maybe you should do an auction.
That would be fantastic. I probably should do an auction. Then I can get both of what we have dubbed on the show as Ryan's Rays. I think Springs and they're going 160, 166. They've been tied to each other all draft season. Springs is going a little bit earlier than Rasmussen. I think that's right. I think Jeffrey Springs has a little bit more strikeout ceiling than Drew Rasmussen. But I love both of these guys for this year. Their stuff numbers pop. Their actual skills pop. They did not suffer at all in the transition from the rotation from the bullpen to the rotation. And yeah, I would take both these guys over Giolito. This is where I'm getting back into the pool. There's also an honorable mention, Charlie Morton, going in this round too. There's a lot of starting pitchers that I really like. So when I say I'm avoiding starting pitching in the middle rounds, this is about where I'm coming back in to grab 1 or 2 of Charlie Morton, Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen at around 160. I love these guys for this year.
Yeah, definitely hitting the pool of pitching. This is where like I didn't really like the last couple of rounds per se. Maybe jump one of those guys up type thing. Wouldn't be opposed to that if your team build works out. For me in this range, outside of the pitching, I wasn't a big fan of much, except Eugenio Suarez is a guy I've kind of focused on. If you're missed out on third base, it's like the Chapman Suarez cliff. I've been leaning a little more towards Suarez. It's like a perennial 30 home run dude. I believe the average is better than it's been the last 2 years. He had 236 last year. I think he's at least a 230 to 240 guy. We've seen him be even better in the past. But the power, the run production, I'm a big fan of what he can do there. And that Mariners lineup will be pretty darn good this year. So I'll take Eugenio Suarez here if I'm needing third base. Otherwise, I'd probably go to one of your pitchers as well.
Yep. Speaking of attached at the hip, Suarez and Matt Chapman, 3 picks apart, same exact projection. So
yep, all season. All right. Another great pitcher you have here.
Yep, another pitcher. Again, this is indicative of my strategy. Technically, this man, Jordan Montgomery's going. He's the last pick of the 14th round, but whatever. It's our show. We can bend the rules. Jordan Montgomery's my guy. I think there's a ceiling of like an SP2 here and a floor of like an SP3, which is where he's being drafted. I think you're drafting his floor, and I think there's a little bit more in this package. We've talked about a little bit about the pitch mix change and when he moved out of New York over to St. Louis. I think that was the best thing for Jordan Montgomery. I just think you're getting someone stable with another level. I don't see like an ace. I don't see enough. Well, I mean, swing strike rate over 13% each of the last 3 seasons. There's probably a short list of starters that actually have that. Jordan Montgomery being one of them. So I don't know. He's an absolute buy for me.
Yeah, big Jomo fan. Would be nice if he a little more consistent in the strikeout department. I think that's like the biggest bugaboo I have with him.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the only concern. Like the thing is, if he struck out more guys, he'd be going higher in the drafts. So let's just be real about it. That's just the bottom line. But yeah,
the whiffs are there. Like, and that's what gives me hope for the strikeouts to come up. Like the whiffs are still there, and
100%.
So.
For me, I'll keep this short and sweet. Thairo Estrada. I think if you guys are probably sick of me talking about Thairo Estrada by now, this is my dude. The Crawford injury just makes it even more my dude. Like it's pretty cut and dry. 20 plus stolen bases. I think there's still at least 15 home runs in that bat. Leading off every day. Thairo Estrada.
I'm gonna go. We're going a little bit rapid fire, but that's fine. We've talked about these guys a lot. So I'm gonna list 6 numbers here: 28, 37, 30, 33, and 33. That's actually 5 numbers. That's Whit Merrifield's 5x5 earnings each season from 2017 to 2021. That number dropped to 17 last year. You could make the argument that Whit Merrifield is 34. The game's, his fantasy game is all some batting average, but mostly stolen base centric, and speed will fall off at age 34. I'm taking the glass half full approach here with Whit Merrifield. I think he's there. I think he's Toronto's everyday second baseman. I think he's going to play every day. Granted, it might be in the bottom of the order, but that's fine in that lineup. I think you've got a guy, despite the age, has a 5-year track record of being like a third-round pick and who is going way late because of one down season last year. So Whit Merrifield is my guy.
Yeah, I'm starting to buy into Whit a lot more as the draft season goes on, especially now that my biggest concern was the consistent playing time in Toronto, and it looks like second base is his job. Like it's his jam, which makes me like him a lot more. For me, my guy is Brady Singer. This is a guy I was all in on last year. Really loved the improvements that he made in the minors. He got sent back down, came back. We know the whole story with Brady Singer. Strikeouts have been pretty good, a little down from this previous regime, but still very solid. Most importantly, dropped the walk rate a ton from before, which helped his ratios, of course. Just a really, really good pitcher. That ballpark helps him a ton. He pitched on, and then another thing is he pitched 153 innings last year, which means we should get like 170, 175 out of him this year, which is also a nice big boost. So, Brady Singer's a guy that, he's not on every team of mine, but if I'm looking for a pitcher in this range, I don't mind him at all.
Makes sense. I think he's a big floor guy, similar to like Montgomery. I like Montgomery a lot more than Singer.
So do I. Yeah.
I think you're just buying some safety, which matters this late in starting pitching, because I'm telling you, like a month, 2 months from now, we're all excited for the season to start. We're going to be trying to pick up starting pitchers on Fab, and it's going to be a bloodbath. So, yes, Brady Singer doesn't, like, to me, he's not the sexiest name out there, whatever. I don't really even think like a breakout guy, but I think he's a rotation stabilizer, and you're going to need that once these injuries start hitting. So
100%. I'm going to make an executive decision. Do we want to move this Bloom board to next week?
Let's do it.
Yeah, and we'll do listener questions because you guys came through.
That's fine.
You guys,
we have a lot of, and we value this. Like Bubba said, that we would love to do a whole show, just a mailbag show. So we love listener questions, and we're happy to take them. So let's punt Bloom boards for next week, and let's have at it, man.
All right. Well, we'll start with Big John Stud himself, John
friend of the pod,
our buddy, friend of the pod,
award-winning.
Yeah, he tried to show us his award on the pod too. It's an impressive thing, Mr. John Legeza. He says, I think this is in regard to Edwin Diaz. How far do we chase him up the board? Oh, no, that's the question. One on each side. So pitcher, Reed Detmers. I still have just today's drafts up, but he's talking to town these days. His ADP is 169. How high would you go on Reed Detmers? Like, would you go above Charlie Morton at 161?
Right. So that's what I was looking at with Reed Detmers. And so kind of the impetus, I think, behind John's question is like Reed Detmers looks amazing this spring. I read an article where I don't think they have StatCast in Tempe.
No, that's a dump stadium they're in. Yeah, no.
Yeah. I actually haven't been there. I've driven past it probably 150 times, but never been. Reed Detmers is showing career high velocity this spring on both his fastball and slider. And the slider was really behind the Renaissance project with Reed Detmers. So unfortunately, that means Reed Detmers is climbing very high in drafts to the point of getting to where he's getting close to my children, Ryan Drees and Charlie Morton and Jordan Montgomery. I think that's kind of the new decision you have to make. I love Reed Detmers, but not that much. So if this is the new price tag for Reed Detmers, I'm probably out. However much that pains me to say, because he does look really good this spring.
Yeah, I'd say in that 155-ish range, at least there's a conversation. Maybe it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, is maybe you jump some of these pitchers up around and take a couple of them and piggyback and get some guys like that. The one, if I have to throw any cold water on Reed Detmers because he's so hot right now, Hansel hot, the Angels are still doing that weird 6-day rotation thing. So outside of like Shohei, that is going to potentially affect. Detmers may never be a 2-start pitcher. So if I have to throw any cold water on things, like let's just look at the big picture here, he should still be awesome. I'm not saying he won't be, but that might actually help him to not, be a 2-star guy and limit his innings, but just a little something on the side there. All right, another guy that's having a monster spring training because he hits every fastball on the middle of the plate like he should. Jared Kelnick,
Ha!
ADP of 205 these days. Um, where are you looking at on him? Because he's been moving like in just today's drafts. His ADP is 205. He's gone as high as 188. So where do
Is he really? Wow.
yeah, that's his highest today, 188. Like Bryce Harper's got an ADP of 181. So he's almost Masataka Yoshida 185, Cody Bellinger 188. Like, are you willing to put Kelnick above Cody Bellinger and Yoshida?
And how many spring training plate appearances Jared Kelnick have? I'm going to say
I'll tell you in a second.
32 at-bats. 32 at-bats. So we're going to jump Jared Kelnick this high over 32 at-bats.
Yep.
We say all off season. Don't fall into this trap. We're falling into this trap. I'm not Cody Bellinger is what Jared Kelnick could be if things go well for Jared Kelnick. Like they're almost kind of the same profile. Jared Kelnick kind of sneakily has a really good power speed combination with a terrible batting average. I think if Jared Kelnick ends up with a Cody Bellinger type season, I think that's a win for Kelnick. And I just don't think those two guys should be drafted near each other based on 32 at-bats this spring.
I'm just going to say this much. I'm glad I got shares of Jared Kelnick in DCs a long time ago because his ADP just keeps climbing. I was willing to take chances then. Right now, it's starting a little rich for my blood. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so. I mean, I don't even know about it always feels good to draft someone at a cheaper ADP than they are currently. That feels good.
100%.
I'm
all about the feels. So we're good there.
It means nothing at this point. So even if you are all about the feels, it's still Jared Kelnick.
I want to just point out, like with the Mariners, they have J-Rod and Teoscar everyday outfielders. So you have Kelnick, you have Sam Haggerty, who had good moments last year. They like Cooper Hummel for some reason. They're going to have Dylan Moore could play outfield / infield at times for them. And then if you look even down in their minors, Cole Calhoun's still there if they're feeling it. Yeah, I'm just saying there's moving parts. I think it's Kelnick's job. Don't get me wrong, but just takes another slump and we're back to that story all over again.
Yep.
So we'll see. Steve Brunn, we kind of already answered this, or at least Ryan did, because we know where he's leaning. Springs versus Rasmussen versus Detmers. In that order, I think.
Yeah, that order. Springs, Rasmussen, almost interchangeable. I like them quite a bit more than Reed Detmers.
All right. Our buddy Torres ask a question. Give us one mid-round player who's getting a lot of hype that you're out on.
It's a great question. I'm going to go the type of player that I'm out on, and that's the closer, quote unquote, that doesn't have the job. And so that would be like Alexis Diaz and Andres Munoz. Those guys are still going in the top. Diaz is going 135.
Wow.
Andres Munoz is going 145. I guess Diaz they say Diaz has the job in Cincinnati.
He looked real good in the WBC, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
Tell me when Cincinnati has not shown in the last few years not the ability, the propensity to go with one closer. So I'm still not sold on Alexis Diaz and Andres Munoz. I still think Paul Sewald gets the primary amount of saves there. And so I don't know why. Yes, the skills are great. I don't know why he's a top 150 pick. This feels like who was the Rays Anderson a few years ago that got hurt? He wasn't the closer and was going in the top 10 rounds.
Nick Anderson.
Nick Anderson. Yes. Yeah. Good pull. I feel like I'm getting Nick Anderson vibes.
That's a great comp. That's a phenomenal comp, actually. Very, very similar because he got all pushed up, got hurt. He wasn't even the main closer.
He wasn't even the closer. It didn't matter that he got hurt, really. It was just he wasn't the guy. So,
yeah, I'm looking at our chart here, and Diaz would be the dude. We've kind of talked about it so many times about him, how we're just totally out on that scenario. it's hard to even pinpoint like one other guy because you can kind of be like, if I had to say Chris Bryant, because I'm just out on Chris Bryant, but I know other people are, and you never know. So that
I know, like I took Stanton, and that was another one of our questions. I took Stanton and Bryant in Tout Wars, and you were not all that enthused with either of those two picks. So
they're very variant players. Like I could see the appeal on both sides of it. I guess if I had to have one, because technically it's mid-round, round 8 is technically mid-round. I guess I'm out on Camilo Duvall, so we can go that direction.
Which means a lot because I mean you know those ninth inning tendencies.
Yep. All righty. Next up on the docket here, Heath Caps. Giancarlo at his ADP screams free money to me. Tell me why I am right or wrong. Well, Ryan, you drafted him. Tell him why he's right.
I did draft Stanton. It was Tout Wars, so it was OBP. It was
unlimited ILs.
And unlimited ILs. So there's some context to that. From a pure projection standpoint, Giancarlo Stanton is a buy at this ADP. Like Giancarlo Stanton, I don't think it's been this cheap in a long, long time. Granted, yes, there's injury. He was pretty bad in the second half, but I actually ran the numbers, at least in the projections I have, which again, I use a blend of HQ and the BATX. For Giancarlo Stanton to return his draft price right now, he would need like 450 at-bats.
Yep.
Based on the projections. And it's your call whether you think Stanton can exceed that or not. We don't know. I'm just saying, like, if Stanton pieces together 500 at-bats, 550, he's a great monster buy at this point, like a really good buy. There is obviously the floor of like a 200 at-bat season, and he struggles. But I've like never drafted Giancarlo Stanton before until Tout Wars this year. And it's really for this reason. It's just the numbers stand out where he's going in drafts.
No, I give you a hard time. I gave you a hard time because you paired him with Bryant. That was like, okay, that's
well, that's because I couldn't find freaking David Bednar in the. I wasn't because those were my 4th and 5th outfielders. Yeah. So
I do like Stanton at this ADP, and it's everything you said. Even last year in 110 games, 31 homers, he has hit 211, and that's because he had a 227 BABIP. That dude never has a 227 BABIP, and he's usually a pretty good average guy: 250, 273, 288, 266. You pair that with all the power, that's outstanding. Because last year 19% barrel, 52% hard hit, 119 max EV. His XBA was 240. The dude's awesome. It's just a health thing, like we said. But even if he plays 2/3, 3/4 of a season, he's easily going to pay out this ADP. And that's where I think it's fun, because then you also get the replacement value on top of it with what he's going to give you. So I don't mind him at all here. Like I've taken stabs at him, especially if I'm a team that's kind of a little low on power. I think he's a great guy to circle. Like if you go and maybe you go pocket aces early, or you go catchers and pitching and some other things early, and you're light on power, I would circle Stanton and like make a point to get a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, because if he stays healthy, we've seen him hit 59 home runs. I think 40 plus is pretty much in the bag as he plays 140 games. I'd be willing to go that far. So I think he's a very, but it's a big if. We've seen the issues with him. There's no doubt about it, but I think there's something there for sure. Scott at AZ Scott. In light of Edwin Diaz's injury, where you drafted Robertson, Ottavino, and other Mets bullpen options, we kind of hit that at the beginning, Scott. So hope that helps you out there. Eric Samolsky, multi-time FSWA award winner. How high can you push Brendan Donovan? This is a great question, because Brendan Donovan is having one heck of a spring. He's elevating the baseball. He's hitting for power. He's doing things Tommy Edman can only dream of. So what are you thinking of with Brendan Donovan?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because I just kind of crapped on Jared Kelenic and 32 at-bats. I don't think Brendan Donovan has that many more at-bats than 32. The thing with Brendan Donovan, the price isn't really going up. Brendan Donovan's going in the last 7.
Man.
Yeah, like 275. I got like 278, whatever the dates we're looking at. The interesting comp that Brendan Donovan is going basically right next to is DJ LeMahieu. And give me Brendan Donovan all day. Second, third, outfield eligible. The plate skills have been there, and Brendan Donovan was the cover boy in my speculator article this week. There are some legit changes he's made to his stance and that sort of thing, which could all be noise, whatever. It's working this spring. That has almost zero predictive ability for whether it's going to work in the regular season. But again, given the price where you're comparing him to like Yandy Diaz, LeMahieu, John Birdie's going after him, Jorge Soler, like give me Brendan Donovan. I think he's going to play all the time, might even ascend near the top of the order in St. Louis. And that's a hell of a lineup to hit in front of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado if that happens. So Brendan Donovan, I think, is an awesome buy where he's going.
Not to mention second base, third base, and outfield. So MICI outfield. That's like a unicorn. So
it's huge. It's huge.
That's tremendous. And at worst, like if he gets a little power, it's great. He hits for average. He scores a ton of runs. Like there's a lot to like with Brendan Donovan. So with you on that one. He also asked, why does Chris Taylor fall so far in drafts? ADP 311 over the last day. I know he's probably behind 300. The one thing I'll say before I pass it off to you is we all assumed he was going to take over shortstop when Gavin Lux went out, and that seemed like the normal thing. Miguel Rojas has been playing shortstop this entire time, basically, or most of the time, because he's a good glove shortstop. And if that's the case, now we're back to Chris Taylor platooning between second, short, and the outfield. And that's the conundrum. That's the conundrum we were in before.
And that's the thing. So it's easy to sit here behind a microphone and say draft skills over roles. Chris Taylor, who I think is still a good buy. You're right. He does not currently have a starting job. So if you draft, especially even, I mean, whatever, if he's not hurt, IL league, non-IL league, if you draft Chris Taylor, are you starting him that first week? Are you starting him that second week? Are you starting him that third week? Like how long until and once your injuries start piling up in that second week, in that third week, how long will it be until Chris Taylor, who might even get hurt himself, falls into regular playing time for injury on the Dodgers? So like, yes, while Chris Taylor, I think, is an excellent, versatile power speed player who will get enough playing time to turn a profit where he's being drafted, I do think there is something to that like weekly decision of like, oh, Chris Taylor's still not the everyday whatever. He's going to play 3 times this week. What's that start sit decision look like? So it's an interesting, like from a roster build in a weekly league, what that looks like.
Yeah, if he had a full-time gig, easily moves up. We were all pumped on that, but it ain't looking that way. Jack Kitchen, I think it's more of a statement than a question, but it's framed as a question like Jeopardy. Why is Aaron Hicks on the Yankees roster? Yeah, we all would like to know.
I don't know. I really don't know. Yep. I mean, good for him. He's made quite a career doing very little in recent seasons. I think Oswaldo Cabrera is still an absolute buy.
I've been buying him everywhere over the last couple of weeks. Everywhere I can, I've been grabbing Oswaldo Cabrera. And if you look at Mike Curlin's charts, he's not just playing the outfield. He's playing second base, third base. He's playing all over the place. So they're putting him in that lineup. Andy Splinter asks, sounds like Musgrove may only miss a week. Do you think he returns to pre-injury ADP? Thanks to this man on the other side of the picture over here, this guy over here. He texted me on my barf draft and goes, hey, it looks like you're a little light on starting pitcher. Musgrove's only supposed to miss 1 start. Bubba takes Joe Musgrove. I've taken him about 3 drafts, including barf, since that happened.
Happy to help you out, brother. When I saw this question, I could see you smiling through the tweet. This is the case for not overreacting to February injury news. And it sounds like Musgrove's gonna miss 1 start, and the discount's probably gone.
But ADP of 90.
Yeah.
Ay. Like Carlos Rodon is going ahead of Joe Musgrove right now.
Is he really?
Someone explain that to me. On today's 3 drafts, 2 picks ahead of Joe Musgrove.
Yeah, you're right.
It's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't wrap my head around that one. But take Joe Musgrove, enjoy the dip, people.
Which I did see though, something about Rodon might only miss 2 to 3. I still think there's a difference between those 2 injuries.
A toe injury and an arm injury. I'm taking my chances with the toe.
Agreed.
So we're going there. So take the dip there. Take the dip on a Felix Bautista as well, folks. Just get that one out there. That was a fun dip while we had it. Also, CJ Baseball has a couple questions for us. G Lito, are you buying the bounce back with the back to my pre-2020 shape of my life? I am. What about you?
I'm not. So pick your favorite co-host of the podcast. And
Ryan's the award winner. I'm just the guy that talks into a mic. So figure that one out. CJ's other question: thoughts on Jose Miranda with third base eligibility? Yeah, he's first base, third base. I'm kind of out for now until he proves me otherwise.
I mean, we just talked about he's going one pick before Rowdy Tellez, third base, whatever. Like take Matt Chapman the next round, take Suarez the next round, and get your first baseman over Miranda. I'm not a big Miranda fan.
Yep, neither am I. He needs to prove that he can hit for power, and I just haven't seen it yet. So right. I'm out with those other guys around him, like you said. Well, Ryan, we did it. You guys are awesome. Keep the questions coming, like legit. And we're not kidding. We'll do a whole. We'll scrap the outline if you guys bring questions. Like we will do questions. So keep them coming. We're here to help you guys with drafts. But final thoughts, Ryan. Mid-round picks in the bags. We're getting ever so close to the season.
Like I said at the top, can't wait for it to come. Yeah, big drafts coming up. We'll do. So I think we'll tentatively plan for streaming one of your OCs the Monday before the season starts.
Yep.
I have my main event the final night, which I won't be streaming. There's a lot of money on the line with that one, so can't make that David Bednar mistake in a main. So I don't know. We have one more show. It's kind of crazy. We have one more show before
the season starts.
So next Thursday we'll talk schedule and I don't know, something, whatever y'all want us to talk about. If we have this many listener questions again, we could just do schedule, Bloom boards, news, and questions, and I'm sure that'll fill
plenty
the
of time.
Entire show.
The schedule we could do a whole show on. I have a feeling if you really want to get goofy with it. So not too worried about that. But as Ryan said, we'll do one of my drafts coming up. We'll have much more for you guys. Follow the old Twitter there at Bubba Bloom Pod. Ryan will tweet out some stuff there, plus his awesome account at Ryan BHQ. Check out his speculator articles. I don't just say this because he's on the show. He's done like who's the next Adolis Garcia, who's the next Christian Javier, I believe was what the title was, if I was right. They're really interesting names. That's how he mentioned the Dodds and the Schuster stuff and everything. Some names that make you go, and it just makes you think a little bit. So check those out. That's the beauty. Like I'm just a shill. I love Baseball HQ. Like the articles make me think about more things. So it's really, really good stuff over there at HQ. But yeah, check out Ryan on Twitter at RyanBHQ. I am on Twitter at BDentric. We'll be back to you guys next week. This was Bubba the Bloom, episode 48. Catch you guys next time.